We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for Top Gun Sales Bootcamp training, and um we are in I think going into month 4, I believe. I believe we are, and so when we reflect back, I think at the end of every goal period, it could be at the end of the day, it could be the end of the week, the end of the month, it could be the end of the year, it could be the end of the decade. I mean, it could be the end. I think it's always good to go ahead and like we should always be encouraged by what we've accomplished, and then we should always be frustrated by what we could have accomplished if we knew back then what we know now. And so Nora, what you got?
I was gonna say my percentage for last week was 24, but then I realized that there's an error, so that might not be correct. But the other thing was with the leverage course, watched the last one yesterday, and I don't know, I'm sure you guys have said it before, but I don't know, for some reason it resonated differently yesterday. Um, I think it might have been Tom said that failure is an opportunity. I've been trying to wrap my head around that.
How so?
I don't know, because you think of like failure as like a bad thing, like you don't want to
Really?
fail,
Really?
but I mean, I always have.
Okay, that's good to
But
know. So in Life Masteries, there's over 500 natural laws, and when the kids were growing up, there were 12 principles to Life Masteries, and two of those 12, one was um, there's no problems, there's only opportunities. So we didn't, even when we were homeschooling the kids, we didn't have math problems. We had math opportunities. See, the brain and how the brain works, the brain doesn't like a problem. It doesn't like when it and so what the brain will do is the brain will shut down when there's problems. The brain will avoid it, the brain will run from it, the brain will do a whole bunch of weird things to problems, and so we make the problem worse. And so, but opportunities the brain loves. And so you can train your brain to turn every problem, every quote unquote failure into a success immediately by just saying, just teaching your brain to say, this isn't a problem, this is an opportunity. This is not some woo woo stuff where it's like, hey, I shot myself in the foot with a shotgun. Like, yay. No, it's like it's, and so another one of the 12 principles is failure is always a choice. And there's only two ways to fail. You fail to try or you fail to learn. Fail to try and failure to learn. So often the amiable and analytic, they fail, and their failure is failure to try. And I would say that the expressive, not the driver, of course, but maybe it's more true about the driver than it is any of the other personalities, right? But it seems like the, expressive to me does not seem to learn. Like they try things and they just don't learn. Like the coffee connection was just absolutely, you got to be kidding. Like it just, it was mind numbing, mind boggling. It was like mind blowing to me. And what was better than that was the debrief. And what was the best of the debrief was the last like 3 minutes of it. because I realized something I've missed for 62 years.
What did you realize?
That I don't know how to build teams. Shoot, I didn't even know what a team was until, I went through decades of coffee connections and years, like 4 years of coffee connection here in Indiana. And then went through debriefs after debriefs after debriefs. And then all of a sudden it's like, you got to be kidding, Mark. That's what you're missing, buddy. That's what you're missing.
How did you realize that?
Well, this is complicated. This requires 3 degrees. I don't know. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to process it because you guys don't have 3 business degrees. So without 3 business degrees, the complexity of this is it's insane. So it's very, very complicated. You have to be really, really smart. The first thing you got to do is you got to go ahead and show up. Right? It's like, what do you mean, Mark? What do you mean show up? I don't understand that. That's complicated, right? You said the
Okay.
first you said the first thing, Mark. That would seem to indicate there's more than one thing. Oh, there's more than one thing, yeah. See, there's more than one thing. And so the so first you got to show up. Then you got to be expecting a life-changing moment, something that'll absolutely rock you to the very core and the essence of who you are. And then you've got to pay attention, close attention, very close attention. And then you've got to understand to be humble, to realize somebody has no experience and what you have, decades of experience, might be able to teach you something that you've never learned before. And the life-changing moment can come from anywhere at any time in any way and anything. And if you're not paying attention, Mark, you're going to lose it potentially forever. Like when I was 8 years old, and my grandfather said, Mark, when somebody tells you something, there's some amount of truth to it. It could be 1% or 99%. It's up to you. It's not up to them to decide what it is or how to respond. And then I wasn't born yet. Well, I would have been born. Well, I probably wasn't born yet. I wasn't even conceived, but I was still there. Ooh, that's kind of weird. Like, how do you do that, Mark? I don't know. It's a little trick. So before I was even conceived, a couple years before I was even conceived, Tom Coons was 15 years old. And I was there with him. Even though I wasn't conceived, I wasn't born. And his father, or his grandfather, Grandpa Chappelle, he said to him, he said, Tom, what I'm saying to you right now doesn't make any sense to you. All I ask is that you write it down. Because, well, it won't have any significance to you now. It will someday in the future. This is one reason why you take handwritten notes. See, before I was conceived, before I was born, there is wisdom that came before me. And if I pay attention, really, really, really close attention, I'll learn things from my forefathers, from those who have gone before me. If I don't, well, I won't. And most people think it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's not that big of a deal, Mark. And the sad part is they're right. It's really not. What I see is not a big deal. The thing that's sad about it, it's heartbreaking actually when you think about it. Shoot, a country and western music a song could be written about it. Maybe it will be actually for this session. The thing that's sad about it is it could be significant, but it's not. Why isn't it significant, Mark? Well, because that person's life is not significant. What do you mean somebody's life is not significant, Mark? Right? Well, it's not because they were created, they were conceived in their mother womb, knit together by their creator. Like, holy cow. Like, that is so cool.
Recording in progress.
So they were created to be something significant, but they chose not to be.
He chose not.
It's like, why would somebody choose not to be significant? Fascinating. It's just so fascinating. Wow. Nor anything else you got.
No, I don't think so.
Nice. You rock, girl. Wow. Kenny, what you got?
Thinking if there's an idea, I'd like to duplicate like the incidents I had last week, and then I think the only way probably to do that is just kind of follow that same system, make it happen again.
Yeah, good point. So I think Kenny said he'd like to duplicate last week. And so, like on Ford versus Ferrari, if you haven't watched it, I'm telling you, watch it, where he talked to his son about the perfect lap. And in the movie, his dad had the perfect lap and he had already won. And so he was putting everything at risk. He didn't have to have the perfect lap to win, but he did it because, I don't know, he could. And so the challenge with that, Kenny, is the amount of bandwidth, the amount of thinking that's required for that is insane. It's the holy grail. It's like you're looking for something that's like impossible to find. I don't know, something like the dream wife or the dream husband, like, like our soulmate. Like, it's impossible to find. Like, and so the results that you had from last week were in part the effort that you had, Kenny, from last week. So it's in part like today, this moment in time is tomorrow's past and yesterday's future, and we're living right here in the moment, like 7,000 RPMs. We're traveling across time together, all of us. Like, it's like a magical moment, and everything slows down. And it's you and time. So to do that, Kenny, it's noble, it's worthwhile. Totally commend it. Like, wow, like this is so cool. Like but what you're looking at, in addition to what you did, you're looking at what was done that set up what you did. And then also, it's also the future, where there was something in your future that caused the present to be what it is. So it's a moment in time. You had a bunch of moments in time last week, and they were accumulation of a week ago, a month ago, 2 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, the future. And then also something in the future also impacted something in the present. So how do you put together, that perfect lap? Does that make sense, Kenny, or not so much?
It does. Yeah. We're always trying to be, or always striving to have that perfect blend. And then in the process, if you don't reach it, well, you'll reach some level of that.
Right. It connects back into what Nora said. Failure is not failure. Failure is to fail to try or fail to learn. Failure is always a choice. We get to choose, do we fail or do we not fail? And sadly, a lot of people fail to learn. I don't know what's more sad, failure to not to learn or failure not to try. I don't know. They're both miserable. Mostly to the people around us, it seems. So the ride along, I don't know which one it was. The last one, no, not the last one you went on. The one before last, that one changed my life forever. And it's not just that ride along that changed my life forever. It's the after, where I was there and I experienced everything. And in that experience, I could see the past and I could see the future. Fascinating. like jeepers, Mark, what's going on? Right? A lot. Anything else, Kenny, you got?
No.
Fabrizio and Andrew, it's like this day is the first day of the rest of your life. This moment in time, is you're traveling on the road and it's dark out and you're seeing things, experiencing things. This trip can change your life forever, but it's not going to do it without you doing something. First, I think you have to be there, and you are. Good, check. I'm there. Then you have to go ahead and pay attention, like really pay attention, like Grandpa Chappelle said to Tom, write it down, take notes, like observe it, look for it, understand the significance of who you are, who you were created to be, and who you could become. I see that in both of you. The key is not me seeing it in both of you. The key is how do I get you both to see it in yourselves? That's the key. That's the magic. Nice. Luke, what you got?
So yesterday in church, humans tend to like black and white, but it seems to me recently I kind of discovered where that may not be the best way. The most effective way to think is in black and white. Yesterday in church, the preacher said something about how heaven and hell is totally black and white. Like, how does
Were you curious and ask him?
what was not?
So when somebody says something that's kind of contrary to what your thinking, or what you're thinking is contrary to what somebody else is thinking. Always be curious. Like always be curious and always say, like that's like it's curious to me. Like what do you mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you mean that like hell is just like light or darkness and that's all it is? There's nothing else. It's just darkness, and heaven is just light and that's all it is. It's just dark and light. Is that like, what do you mean? Like, be curious about it. What's interesting is people who are black and white, when you go ahead and be curious about it, like it's interesting when you're curious on how much it challenges their thinking to say, well, maybe it's not so black and white. Which is fine if it is. It's fine if it's not. It just is. But being curious is what helps us to see the world in a whole different way. Does that help?
Yeah. Yep.
See, this is the first time ever. Like, it's just weird. I wonder if it had to do with anything like your experience at church yesterday. I wonder if it had anything to do with my church, the church I went
Okay.
to. Like I've never had you, never in 2 years had you, connect them, bring it up in a business context. Like it's just fascinating to me. Like, that's fascinating. I've never experienced that before. That's curious. Like I wonder what caused Luke to go ahead and like bring it up and think about it the way he thought. Like, and I wonder, like, is that what it's meant to be once every 2 years? Or is it meant to be like once every 2 months or once every 2 weeks? Like, or what if it's like once every 2 hours or once every 2 minutes? Like, what if life is far, far more than what we realize? And the other side of eternity is even further than that. It's like, man, is that intriguing? What else you got, Luke?
I think that was it. Is there something
Anybody?
else I should have?
Always, right?
Right.
Anything
Yeah,
come to mind?
I don't think so.
So prioritization is an interesting thing, isn't it? I remember as a teenage boy, a young man, and I remember like my dad was a pastor, and he'd be asking men, like it's a small church, it's 100 people, and he'd be asking men, "Are you coming to Sunday night? Are you coming to Sunday night service?" So there'd be a morning service, an evening service, and a Wednesday service, and he'd be like, he'd be asking a man, "Are you coming tonight for Sunday night?" And once a man said, "No, it's family night on Sunday night." And I thought, what a fascinating thing to say as a teenage boy. I'm like, and my dad, like he was, he was, he didn't say anything. But I thought, you're thinking, Mark, you were a strange teenage boy. Was I? Or was I normal? And every teenage boy is wired to go ahead and be curious about things. Some just aren't, most aren't living in their design. I don't know. But I was curious. I'm like, Dad, why don't you say, and I never said this to my dad, but I said, Dad, why don't you say, well, what are you doing on Monday night? Because this man, I knew what he was doing on Monday night. He was watching Monday Night Football. So as a teenage boy, I'm like, he's giving my dad an excuse. And it's like, so why don't you have family night on Monday night? So why don't you go ahead and come to Sunday night service and then you have family night on Monday night. So what you're really doing is saying Monday night football is more important than church, but he never tell my dad the truth. And why wouldn't my dad, confront him on that and say,
They don't
hey,
want the conflict.
And so when we look at, I don't know, when we look at like the before and after is always the most amazing. And so, when we look at the coffee connection, I mean, where is the most significance? The most significance is there's things for you and Kenny that I don't think you guys saw, and you were right there present. You're both present. You're both right there. You're you're both right there. You're both present, but I don't think you saw the significant. Pretty confident. Well, I know you didn't because you didn't bring it up today, which is fine. It's okay. You don't need to bring it up today, but it's interesting on how somebody can go ahead and be part of something significant for themselves, life changing, altering forever and ever. And they're there, but they're not. And then, you guys went ahead and, on the debrief, you had something more important, a higher priority, which again is fine. I don't even need to know what it is. But I mean, it was recorded. So in theory, you could go back and you could listen to it and maybe capture the experience. But would you do it without even this nudge? Or I'm not nudging, I'm just saying. And if you did go back and you weren't in the moment, would you see the significance? And it's like, it's fascinating. Life is fascinating. Anybody else have anything else?
Nope.
So, Andrew and Bricio, you're daily up and out. That's good. I would start going through the Top Gun, catch up. Andrew, same thing for you. I'd start going through day one and I'd start managing up and out. You might go through there roughly a half an hour, each day. And so I'd go through those and start catching up because those things are going to alter. The Top Gun will alter your life forever. It'll alter how you think about everything, about being a dad, like about being a husband, about being a man. Any occupation you go into, it doesn't matter what it is, anything and everything you go into, it's going to go ahead and it'll alter it. It'll alter it. It'll go ahead and it'll change the way you think. It literally rewires your brain and where you'll be able to connect things that you've never connected, do things and think things you've never thought before. I mean, it's just Top Gun it's people think about it's about sales, and it's not that it's not, but it's far, far more than that. It's about life. So always remember we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. If you're listening to the rebroadcast of this and you say, wow, I want more information, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300. Outside the US 630-393-9909. And always remember we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.